How's it going, everybody? My name is Falling Hurts, and today we're going to be doing a review of Enderal, the total conversion mod for Skyrim. And while I normally do only game breakdowns on this channel, part of my rebrand was to do the reviews as well. And now I'm finally going to get a chance to do that other than a short Dishonored video that is on my channel right now. So let's just hop into it. What's Enderal? Enderal is, like I said, a total conversion mod for Skyrim, which basically means it is using Skyrim's engine, and you will open Skyrim when you play it, but it is a completely different game, different universe. You're not in Tamriel, you're on Vin instead, and more specifically, the continent of Enderal. You, as the player, are going to make your character on this ship, and pretty soon after that, you're going to be found out. And when that happens, you're going to get thrust onto Enderal, which is where you're trying to get to as the stowaway, might I add. And you're going to get thrown into a plot of magic and all the human emotions you can think of. Fear, hatred, egotistical bitches, anything you can think of, it's going to play into it in some way, regret even. And it's done in a way that makes it tasteful and not on the nose at all, which makes these themes very satisfying in my opinion, and I think that it does overall add to the narrative of the game, as well as the ever-escalating world-ending threat that is more apparent throughout the course of the game, and I wouldn't say that's a spoiler, it is the main plot line. It's like saying dragons are in Skyrim. Oh no. Okay, with that brief summary out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the machinations of the main story and what I think works and what didn't. I clocked in about 33.2 hours for my full main story playthrough, as well as some side contact. There are romanceable characters, and I did play out their storylines fully. There aren't very many, so let that be known. Those were some of the side quest lines that I did. But overall, though, I would say the main story's pacing did very well. There was few points where I ever felt the need to go and do anything else because I was bored or it's not what I wanted to do. But I gotta say, many of the other side quests in the world did call to me in a unique and interesting way, or at least from a gameplay perspective, like, oh, what can I get out of this? You know what I mean? But the review is focusing mostly on the main story for this, so back to that for a second. The pacing of the main story does take one notable dive. I would say it's towards the midway point, and I've tried to play this game twice, and this was the first time that I pushed through it. Last time I just stopped playing, but I promise you there's like a one quest, maybe two quests in the middle slow point that I'm not really a fan of. It's not necessarily that the quest is bad, it's just the way it's set up. There's no fast travel in this world, let me say. You have to basically either buy a Myrad for Voyage, which is like the Silt Strider from Morrowind, or a carriage from Skyrim, or there are scrolls of teleport, which can take you to pretty much some of these cities, but you have to own those already. You don't just have an unlimited supply. Due to the limited movements, there are some faraway places that do kind of drag on a little bit when you're trying to get to them, especially when some of the enemies are just more of an annoyance than anything. And yet again, I'm going to throw out here, no spoilers, but this game has so many twists. You need to see them all for yourself. Some of them big, some of them small. Okay, I'm going to use one example here, okay? This is going to be something that, minor spoiler warning. At one point, you're walking through a cave with your companion. He is one of the two romanceable companions. It doesn't matter. You're walking through the cave, and he walks ahead of you. He comes back, and he asks you a personal question to make sure you are who you are. You wonder why? You go up there into the room that he was just in, and you see your body laying on the ground, the player character's body that you created in the character creator on the ground. And he is wondering if you were an imposter or the real one. If you're that sus, you couldn't answer that question. And it was just a big, profound moment that took up only 2 or 3 minutes. It wasn't even a huge change, but it was very interesting to me. And I think that sets the overall tone for the game, and I want you to keep that in mind when I say that there are big twists and small ones, because this was a decent little mind bend, but it wasn't even a twist. That being said, though, the game does pride itself, I think, a little bit on being unpredictable almost. You know, there are certain story beats that it seems to want to hit, and you can tell some of those from earlier on, but for the most part, it's going to take you through the ringer for the most part. But my one complaint about that is, of all the twists, the main story twist at the end of the game is so predictable, where every other little twist is like a full-on mind blend that's going to completely change the way you've looked at the past couple missions or the whole game even. But the main twist in the game, I completely saw it coming, and I had no idea about it. It's not bad. It's not a bad twist. I mean, it's not a bad story moment. It's satisfying. It's nothing bad like that. But of a game that is very good about surprising the player, I'm really surprised that the main story moment didn't have more of a shock. I suppose we can talk a moment about those characters. There are 2 romanceable characters in the game. There is Kalia Sakaresh and Jaspar Delvaric. Pretty sure I pronounced that right. I mostly just call him Jaspar. Anyway, those are your 2 romanceables and some of your 2 main protagonists throughout the game. Another main character is Tilor Aranthiel from the Holy Order. And another character that you're going to be seeing staggered throughout the game is the Veiled Woman. You see her earlier on, and there's a lot of other main characters throughout this game, but these are some of the better ones in my opinion. They're the more intriguing, they have really good voice acting, and they draw the narrative forward each in different ways a lot of times, and they really add to the ensemble cast, which is true. It's not just a story about your character, it's a story about all of them and how they're going to interact with this world-ending threat. Going off of that, though, we can talk about voice acting and further into sound just a little bit further. And most of the voice acting is really good, I gotta say. It's serviceable, when there's a no-named character in the streets that you pass and they don't sound like a wet dog, that's great. But there is one character in the main story that has absolutely atrocious voice acting, and they're one of the first characters to get killed off, and oh my gosh, I was so happy. But there's a scene where you get to relive one of her final memories, and basically you're hearing that same voice but with a slight echo, and it is terrible design choice on that one. And I think that was right around the time when I was starting to not like the pacing, if I'm being honest. But that second part was the side content. General sound effects are pretty much, they're Skyrim. You got your Skyrim sound effects. There's not really too much new. A couple unique different sounds, but nothing too intense as far as that goes. But the soundtrack, on the other hand, that we do need to talk about. I could listen to this in my daily world if I wanted to. It's that good. Between the main themes and some of the eerie things you get through a few of the flashbacks that are littered throughout the game, as well as the combat themes, it's all very intense, and during each of the main story beats throughout the main story, you're going to get some new soundtracks that you haven't heard before, which in games where, like it's Skyrim, where you've gone around for hundreds of hours and you hear the same soundtrack over and over again, and I'm sure if I played Enderal it'd be like that too, but when it introduces new music to you throughout big story moments, oh, it's just incredible. It's a mind-blowing experience. It really feels like a full soundtrack and not just a couple tracks reused, and I think that's very nice. I'm sure I didn't even find them all. I'm sure there's other things for more side content. Okay, we've talked about the sound. Now let's talk about how the game looks. And I need to state this now before we get any further into the graphics or stability talk. I played Enderal on the original Skyrim version, not Skyrim Special Edition, for one reason alone, and that was because initially I had my Skyrim Special Edition modded to all hell, and I did not want to run the risk of ruining that in any way, because it took me a long time to download that, it took me a long time to do all that, and I just wasn't sure how that would work with the directories. So I'm playing the Steam version of the Skyrim OG version, but for ease of access, for anyone who's going to play this, I do recommend playing the Enderal Steam version of the Skyrim Special Edition, due to the fact that the 64-bit engine in that, you are going to have more stability, and I did have quite a few crashes throughout the game, probably 9 or so throughout the entire playthrough of 30 hours. All of that being said though, Enderal does look extremely good on Old Room, as I would like to call the original Skyrim version. Most of that is due to the lighting, because it does come with an ENB pre-baked in it, so you're not just loading up, a few new textures, some people saying some crazy different shit than what's in Skyrim, and a new map. You're going to get some intense lighting changes. It's going to make the game darker, it's going to make the game more vibrant at times. It really just depends on what they're using, and from what I can tell, another big thing that makes the biomes in the world feel different is that they change the lighting settings as you're moving throughout. Now you kind of see that a little bit in Skyrim, but in this it's very drastic, and you can tell when it happens, and that's up to you if you decide that's immersion breaking or not. But the way it's done is so natural and real feeling, because all of the other world changes around you right when it happens, so it feels natural in the moment, even if it doesn't seem natural when I'm saying it. There's quite a few different biomes. There's big cities, smaller cities, open cities, all kinds of things. Rivers, lakes, snowy mountains, red forests, deserts even, and, sand cities, which are new to me in the Elder Scrolls, which it's not, but seeing those textures were intense, if nothing else. A lot of unique textures as far as characters go. There's sick kids and, other weird deformed things that you just don't expect to see from Skyrim. You expect them to take the shortcut and maybe just talk to someone behind a closed door. No, that's not happening. You get to see it in this. They're not afraid to show you everything that happens. and I love that so much for this mod. It is noted that on the Skyrim version, I'm not sure if there are graphics mods, but there is a mod workshop specifically for Enderal. So if you do want to maybe change it graphically in any ways, I'm sure you can, and I'm sure you can do that on Nexus as well. Sure AI has also proven themselves to be quite competent with the Creation Engines workshop in the sense that they are able to make things like time stopping completely during a flashback possible, and other particle effects and things like that that you don't expect out of the Skyrim game. It is mostly because they are pretty near pushing the limits of the engine in the state that it was in. I'm sure there was even some changes that needed to be made in that moment. So that explains a lot of the crashes, but that addresses pretty much my one big problem with the game overall, and that's the stability. Maybe a different engine would benefit them in the future, who knows. Okay, I've maybe saved the most important section for an RPG for last, and that is the gameplay. Skyrim players are going to feel very familiar in this world. You know, there is food and different and potions, items like that that are going to help you heal. There are scrolls, there is magic tomes you can read to learn new spells. You're creating your character. It's still the same attack animations with some new weapons, to be fair, but same attack animations throughout, and generally the same ideas, but with a few different twists. First off, let's talk about the food. It acts a little bit more like a different RPG, like maybe The Witcher or something like that, where you have to eat food to satiate yourself and health regenerate out of combat. While you're in combat, you are forced to use your potions. But there is a drawback to potions and certain spells as well. They increase your arcane fever, which is something that your character is afflicted by, where the more magic you use, your character's not used to it, and it hurts his brain. Pretty much that's what's happening. And that's the dumbed down version. It's a minor plot detail in the earlier parts of the game, just to kind of get you introduced to the narrative and the gameplay mechanics. Say you use a healing spell, it's going to say arcane fever worsened by 2%. Once you reach certain thresholds, I think maybe 50%, then maybe you're going to get reduced health or something like that. And then once you reach 100%, you die. But you can take a certain potion called Ambrosia, which will reduce your arcane fever as well. So it's a give and take at all times, and it's a resource manager in a certain way. That being said though, potion making is very much the same, and enchanting is very similar as well. The only big differences with all of these skills is that using them does not make you level up like it does in Skyrim. Enderal features an experience system more akin to Fallout if anything, but instead you use the level up to choose health, mana, or stamina, which is pretty basic in what Skyrim does as well. But the difference is when you go in to meditate and you go in to look at your skills and choose a new one, you get to do that, and that is free of any levels or anything like that. But then you buy a skill book, which can increase your level in that thing. So it's a very monetary thing that you have to do. So say you buy a apprentice skill book, and that'll only take you up to a certain level. I believe it's 25, and then after that you'll have to buy an adept skill book in whatever skill it is. Say it's two-handed, and that will take you to 50, and then so on next to 75, and the next threshold is actually 100. These skill books or in skill level are what affect how good you are. So let's say I buy enough skill books to get up to level 35 in a skill, and I started out at 15. When I'm at 15, I'm only doing 20 damage with a warhammer. When I'm at 35, I'm doing 26 damage, let's say. This is what affects it, not the skills that you're buying with your level ups. Those are more like talents and different abilities, or maybe different perks like paralysis while doing a backwards melee attack. I do hope that makes sense. I tried to explain it the best I can. It makes a lot more sense in motion, but I gotta say, at first, I didn't care about it. I was a Skyrim player, you know, cold-heartedly through and through. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna play the game, I'm gonna level up and beef out my character, get a lot of health. No, this game, if you don't respect it, it's not gonna respect you. It's gonna kill you. And I learned pretty quick that you need to use these skill books. Like, they're not in your face. You'll find some throughout the world, throughout the main story even, but not a lot, not enough. You're gonna have to go out, you're gonna have to buy some, you're gonna have to do what you gotta do to make your character ready, or else you're gonna see that death animation quite a few times. I gotta say, I respect the game for it so much. Like, it's not like I'm saying a lack of tutorial or anything like that. It tells you all of these things, but you need to do it right. Another counterpart to the learning skill books is the blueprints, which you need to find the certain blueprint to make a certain item. Like, you cannot smith anything without the blueprint for it first. And you can buy these just like any other ingredient from the forge, or you can find them throughout the world as well. Overall though, I would say that the different gameplay mechanics that are introduced, as well as the ones that are more refined in Enderal, add to a way better user experience if you take the time to learn it. If you do not, you're gonna have a terrible time with this. Certain things such as the food regeneration and things like that would be something I'd like to see adopted in mainline Elder Scrolls series as well, personally. But there you have it, guys, and to summarize, Enderal is a story of twists and turns, love and hate, egotistical and depravity. Everything that you would want in a story like this, it's here, and I can't emphasize that enough. And it's delivered in a quite well-rounded package of both visuals as well as sound, which make it to be a much higher quality than the initial Skyrim game that you do buy. To top it off, it's going to make some unique gameplay changes that are going to change the formula that you know and love and make it a much more engaging experience that's going to keep you hooked and even longing for more throughout the main story and even side content. I don't do scores or number reviews, so all I can say is it's free. You gotta play this, but I'm really making this video in the hopes that someone would say, hey, this game's going to take 30 hours. How about I spend maybe 18, 17 minutes looking at a video telling me why it's good? And it is insanely good. Not every review I'm going to have is going to be a game I like, but this review, I gotta say, play this game. This is almost an advertisement in a way. I am a hype channel for first and foremost, and you need to be hyped for this one if you haven't played it. Sure AI, the developer, is supposedly working on a new secret thing, and I'm really hoping that it is something new for the world of Enderal. There is also an Oblivion total conversion mod, the game before Skyrim, with another continent from Vin, and that is called Narim. And you see some Narimese forces in this game, so I mean, I'm not sure if there were any references from that game. I haven't played it, and I actually do intend to after this. I'm curious for more of the lore and world building that I'm really digging from this team, and maybe I'll feel more fond of Enderal once I play Narim. Who knows? Anyways, guys, this has been my 2021 review of Enderal. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you did, and subscribe maybe if it was helpful at all. Thanks for watching, and bye.